Hey, good morning, church. So grateful for a moment to come and talk to you about 2 Samuel chapter 21. In 2 Samuel chapter 21, we see some tough things happen. We see some difficult moments. But I pray as we kind of walk through this here shortly, you will keep your mind focused on a couple of key points. First, in the midst of a natural disaster, a famine in the land, David does exactly what he needs to do. He asks for help. He goes to God and he asks for help. Why is this happening? What can be done to change it? And God answers him. And the answer is hard. The answer is hard to hear. Even for David, it would be very difficult to hear. Remember, David knows full well what it means to lose a child. He's lost 3 in our story up to this point. His firstborn with Bathsheba, Amnon, and Absalom. So he knows what he's doing when he takes these young men and he delivers them over, or these sons, if you will, and he delivers them over to the Gibeonites. But even in this terrible moment, I want you to think about what it is that we see happen here. First, we see David go to God. Every time he goes to God, God answers his prayer and he gives him direction. And it works. We see after this terrible moment that the famine is removed, the time of harvest comes. God blesses because they were faithful. Saul did something terrible and it cost his family dearly. Even a generation later, they're still having to pay the price. But think about it for a second, what picture we see painted here. You see, this is the fulfillment, if you will, of a prophecy and of a moment. I think in the letter to the Hebrews, I believe the Apostle Paul wrote that letter, but he says that indeed without the shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness of sins in Hebrews 9:22. That's exactly what we see in Jesus. Thank God that Jesus is that shedding of blood. His death on the cross, his precious blood spilled for the forgiveness of all sin, for all who would believe. He covers a multitude of sin. He separates as far as the east are from the west. He gives us his perfect righteousness and takes upon himself our filthy unrighteousness. He is the shedding of blood for the forgiveness of sin. We see God use this to paint a picture of the need of what we're going to have. Innocent blood shed to remove a debt. Jesus paying the price for us. Another picture I want you to think about is how this chapter ends, in David and his mighty men taking on Goliath's descendants, and the picture of God using individuals to take on giants. And it reminds me of another text, one that Paul definitely wrote in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 27. He says, God uses the foolish things of this world to confound the wise, the weak things of this world to shame the strong. Individual men, even mighty men, don't beat giants one-on-one. This is an act of God. This is his protection and his provision and his promise to establish and uphold David as king. These individuals come in and they fight these warriors, and they fight valiantly, and they win. So as you read this chapter today, again, there's some dark moments, but I pray that you'll stop and consider the beautiful lessons that we see, that in the midst of great suffering and difficulty, David goes to God, he hears from God, and he does what God says. That God uses this terrible moment to paint a picture of our desperate need for Jesus, and how that Jesus is the propitiation for our sins, and that he still works through individuals to perform great miracles for his glory and his honor. Y'all be blessed, and we look forward to seeing you tonight at church. Have a good one as you read 2 Samuel chapter 21.